This week I'm speaking with newly crowned West Highland Way Ultra champion Stuart Johnston. Johnston? Johnston. There's too many Johnstons and Johnstons in my group, mate, sorry. And yeah, we are just, 72 hours since the race has finished. So he's recovering. He's recovering at home now, and he is ready to speak to us all about the West Highland Way and his preparation and running. So welcome, Stuart. Thanks for taking the time today, mate.
Yeah, that's my pleasure. My pleasure. Relying on your interview skills to guide me through this.
Yeah, don't worry about it. There's no real plan or anything. It's just a chat, and it'll be easier because we know each other anyway. Briefly talk about your background, I think, mate, to get started with, and how the ultra running began for you.
So I guess it was about kind of 5 years ago now that I started running. Like, I had ran before, kind of sporadically through the years, but it was about 5 years ago that I started to kind of take it up as a hobby. Like, through university, I was a powerlifter, kind of competing in powerlifting. I was very average at that, and kind of get fed up with that after a while, and started going Monroe bagging and kind of doing a lot of hill walking. I was just kind of really enjoying being out of the gym and kind of seeing the world, I was out on a kind of weekends camping and hiking trip with a mate, and it was it's kind of like 40-kilometre route that we did over 2 days, and we got to the end of the kind of the last Monroe on the second day, and we were absolutely done in. Like, couldn't have been more tired. And this guy came running up the hill, looking fresh as a daisy, and was chatting to us and asking us where we were or where we'd been. And he was like, "Oh yeah, that's the route I've done this morning." And it was just like my head just exploded, like as I was watching this guy kind of running away from us so casually. Something that we'd kind of struggled through kind of over the 2 days, and then I'd seen a few of my friends that had kind of been doing ultras, and I'd kind of paid a wee bit more attention to it, and that really kind of caught my interest, and it started to snowball from there, and I've just been hooked and enjoyed it kind of more and more ever since. So I guess
did you ever find out who the guy was? It wasn't Rob Sinclair, was it?
No, but I was that tired it could have been a hallucination. But no, I never found out who it was. So
yeah. Like, so when you've got that background of powerlifting and then moving into the Monroe bagging, what was it about the running that thought, right, I need to, that's sparking my imagination more than anything now?
I think it was just the idea of being able to see more of the world and kind of do these routes quicker, and basically just be able to like pack more into like a day's adventure. I had ran beforehand, like I'd done like a few half marathons with my sister Frances, and I'd always like really enjoyed like doing them and the run up to these events, and I was always okay at running. Like I think I'm naturally better at running than I am at picking up weights. So I just kind of thought, oh, maybe like try and get back into it again. And one of my colleagues, like where I was working at the time, who was a triathlete, he gifted me a pair of trainers. He was like that, oh, I can't return these. So do you want them? I know you've been doing a wee bit of running. And then so I kind of chucked them on and started going, and kind of didn't stop.
What were the first few runs like? I always like to know.
They were really difficult. I mean, I think I did the classic of like kind of ramping up the distance like way too quickly, and I would kind of go out, like I was living in Aberdeen at the time, so I would go and like running the D-side line and come back and have to ice my knees because they were so sore. But I as much as it was uncomfortable, like I just, I absolutely loved it. And I just loved the process of, lacing up and getting my kit ready and planning what I was going to eat and what route I was going to do. And yes, it was all just kind of snowballing from there, I guess.
And like you work as a physio, right? Yeah, and you've got this powerlifting background. So, did you feel like you were well equipped in terms of how running worked, or was it still? Do you still going into it like making the same mistakes, picking up a few niggles and injuries and things like that?
So I think one of the biggest things that I've got from powerlifting is, having a big strength base like that, from doing that for a number of years. Like I've been quite resistant to most injuries, and I guess most runners would kind of pick up early on. So I think that was a big advantage at the start. Just in terms of the amount of muscle I'd have, or tendon strength, bone strength, these sorts of things. So I think that's been helpful, like in the kind of foundation. And from a physio point of view, I mean, anybody that kind of knows me as a physio, like I don't like to kind of overcomplicate things. I like to kind of focus on the most important things for people. And when it came to running, I was really enjoying the simplicity of it, of just, getting your shoes on and going for a run. And for the first year and a half, like before I started working with you, I was just, reading things in the internet, reading books and trying to apply that myself and not overthinking it. And I still don't do that. Like things like running form, I barely think about it. I just go and run. And there's small things that I do think about, like we chat about later. But for the most part, I just enjoy lacing up and going for a run. So.
Yeah, I guess like as a physio, and you spend all day dealing with different kind of problems. I guess when you go out and run, you don't want to be thinking about what your foot strike should be like, where your hips should be every time you land in.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely gives me an advantage, like when I start to feel like wee niggles coming on, or if I know it's like muscular pain versus tendon pain, or these sorts of things, I can I know how to work around it, which is definitely a big advantage. But as much as I have that kind of sensible kind of clinical physio side to me, like I'm also a bit of an idiot, and I will run through things and kind of gamble.
Yeah.
And, just like anybody else would. So.
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah, as a coach, I'll do the same thing. Like, even though I know before a session and after a session, but in the session, anything can happen sometimes. So the West Highland Way race, 86 miles. What's the climb on it?
96, Gary. Come on. Don't
96 miles. What did I say? 86. Yeah, he didn't take a shortcut. Yeah, we trained for 86 miles. No, 96 miles. The West Highland Way. What is the climb on it? I can never remember in feet.
So I think it officially says it's like kind of 13,000, 14,000.
It's about 14,000, isn't it? Yeah, 14,000 feet. Some technical terrain and stuff like that, especially along the lock side. When was the first time that race sparked your interest?
Oh, it was very early on. So I'd seen like some people like on Facebook had like kind of posted pictures. I mean, it must have kind of been around that time. Like my friends Johnny and Roger ran the race, and again I was. I knew them from the gym, and I had no idea that they were doing ultra running until I saw these photos, and my mind was just blown by, the fact that people were covering these distances. And I started kind of looking into it, and then I saw a lot of the kind of classic, YouTube videos about ultra running, and one of the things that I really loved about it, I still love about it, but really kind of hooked me at the start, was like all the logistics and planning that goes into these races. Like seeing people with their crews at the checkpoints, and how they kind of get themselves sorted out, and what they're eating, what they're drinking, how they're planning for different sections and all the kit. And that really got my interest. And the West Highland Way is just, you know, such a famous, you know, classic route in Scotland. And as soon as I started kind of going out and like doing bits of the route, I just fell in love with it. And it's still one of my favourite places to run. And I think what I love most about it, maybe kind of resonate with people that have done the route or ran the race, is the further you go on the route, like the further north you go, and the harder, you know, the race is getting, the more tired you're getting, the more beautiful the route becomes. You know, everything, like the scenery, like every time you turn a corner, it just, like the landscape opens up and everything's just, like, by the time you get to Glencoe, it's just, like, it's unbelievable. So it was always a big kind of target race for me, that, like, within ultra running.
I think it was in one of our first conversations we had, wasn't it? It was West Highland Way, really. It's it's funny because, like, I've obviously never lived in Scotland, but coached people for those races, and it's just like, I don't meet any runner from Scotland that doesn't know about it, number one, or doesn't want to run it at some point, whether they're a 10k runner or something like that. It's a little bit like, you know, like when the South Africans were comrades and everything. It's just like, that's the race to do. And it's this is the race to do in Scotland, even though it is 96 miles kind of thing, which is crazy to a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, everybody, and even people that aren't runners, you know, it's so popular for people to go and, you know, walk over, you know, a number of days. It's iconic. Yeah.
So what was the first race that you started doing? Like, not the ones that you'd, like, when you started taking it a bit more seriously and you thought, I'm going to run the West Highland Way one day. What was the first race and first couple of races?
So first race I did was the D33 in Aberdeen. That was in 2019. I did that. And that was pretty brutal. It was, you know, freezing cold, pissing rain all morning. And I've, you know, never like, just didn't know fatigue like it. You know, even like with all the kind of training that I'd done in the run up to it, it was just like, after I crossed the marathon mark, like the last, like, kind of whatever it was, like last 6 miles or whatever, it was just crazy how tired I was. But getting to the finishing line was just like the best feeling ever. Like, and it gave me, you know, a sense of like achievement, I guess, that I never got from any other sport or anything like that. And I just from there, I knew that was kind of what I wanted to pursue and kind of do longer races. Yeah.
And was it definitely the fact that you wanted to go longer, or was it at that point you wanted to go faster, or was it a bit of both?
It was definitely longer. Yeah, I didn't have any. I don't think I really thought about speed that much then. Like, I just kind of always wanted to just kind of go longer and longer. Because the race after that was signed up for was the Devil of the Highlands. So that's the last 42 miles of the West Highland Way. And again, I didn't have any idea of how long it would take me to do it, or any kind of aspirations to try and, you know, race it. It was really just a case of, I want to finish the race and, you know, kind of have that sense of achievement just from kind of covering that distance. So yeah, that was my first couple of races, and yeah, it was really just about finishing them and kind of enjoying it at that stage. Yeah.
What was next? Highland Fling?
So after the Devil, that's when I came on with you.
Yeah.
And
yeah, you haven't done that with me, have you?
No, I think because I did the Lenmore 12-hour, and that was my first 100k, and I can't remember whether it was with you or, and that was awesome. That was really, really cool because, you know, just kind of getting over that 100k mark. I think I made it with like 30 seconds to spare or something like that. So that was really cool. And then I came on with you for my first Glen Ogle race. Sure. Yeah. And I was just exhausted because I'd ran too many races. And, you know, I think that's probably what you said to me after, like, what were you expecting, you know, out of this? But I think it was at that point when, it was Glen Ogle was the first race that I did with you, and it was starting to get into structured training, rather than just, you know, lacing up and running whatever distance I wanted, and I was starting to kind of take things a bit more seriously, and
it's easy to forget. Like when I was getting into ultramarathons, there wasn't the opportunities to race every weekend or every month even. So naturally they would be more spread out, and you'd do trail races or maybe marathons in between. So you could still over race, but there wasn't like the opportunity to run an ultra every other weekend like there is now. So I have to remind myself sometimes, like when someone like yourself who's progressing, and let's be honest, like you're progressing quite quickly, but you're still very new to it all. So it's very easy, and you did well very quickly not to just jump into every race you could, because and sticking with the structure a bit better.
But I think the best thing that ever happened to my running was COVID, you know, and you know, as much as, or I should maybe backtrack a wee bit there. The COVID era, you know, let's kind of put, you know, all the, you know, the tragedy that went on during those couple of years, like, to the side. You know, from a running point of view, I think it gave a lot of people time to actually train rather than just racing. And for me, I was able to put down like months and months and months of just training rather than having to like peak and taper and recover, and that was really, I think, quite a turning point in my running training was kind of through the COVID era.
You managed to stay really consistent through that time, really, didn't you? So, and lots of people did, and I guess when you came out the other end of that, you were probably itching to race, I imagine, by that time.
Yeah. I mean, it did a huge amount for my mental health, like through COVID. You know, it gave me something that I could focus on, and you know, something, you know, we were still allowed to go outdoors, and you know, it just kind of gave me a sense of, you know, normality in life, and something that I could, you know, focus on and enjoy. Because me and my partner Marika, we were up in Aberdeen, and, you know, relatively isolated up there. You know, because all my family and friends were kind of away from Aberdeen, so it was very important to me to be able to kind of get out the door every day and have something to focus on, you know, outside of all the, you know, tragedy that was going on in the world at the time.
And what was the, because I'm trying to think back, because the training was consistent and everything, but we weren't, I think at one point, was the 1 year where we didn't know if the fling was going to happen or not, or maybe it was until the last minute, something like that. Was that right?
It was
maybe not the last minute.
It was the Glenmore 24. That was the one that get cancelled.
That's right.
Days before. Yeah.
That's right.
That was
So everything was still up in the air. That wasn't that long ago, really, in the scheme of things, was it?
No. So no. I think that was Can't remember. It's all a blur now.
I know. Yeah, I was trying to think back. Training wise, and what were you doing beforehand? Let's call it structured training, versus what we started doing, like through lockdown and towards the next race.
So before, like, what was I doing before I started with you?
Yeah, what was the real difference, really?
I didn't do anything that hard.
Well,
I think I would. It was literally just a case of, you know, kind of deciding what I wanted to do on the day, and I'd maybe have a bit of a focus on like a long run. Maybe at the weekend I would say, right, I want to cover, you know, 20 miles or whatever. But apart from that, it was all just kind of easy running. Which probably didn't hurt, you know. It's kind of laying a good foundation. But it was really when I started with you, and I remember my first session. It was like 6 times 1 minute hill reps, and it was very, very, very challenging, but I really enjoyed kind of having that structure. And quite quickly I was looking forward to having those sessions rather than just the easy runs. I was looking for something quite challenging, and so that was the big difference. Like I was having 2 maybe interval sessions in a week, and then a kind of structured long run.
You'd have probably you'd have taken 6 times 1 minute in the lead up to this race.
yeah. I think it was the first time. It was the first time I saw a progressive run, and I was looking at the instructions, and Seb, Seb, and he came up to Aberdeen, and we did my first progressive run together, and it was as close to covering yourself in petrol and setting a match. Like it was just, I couldn't believe how hard it was. But they're now my favourite type of runs. I love hitting progressives.
It's a good sign that you can make a progressive run hard, though, because a lot of people don't make it that hard or can't achieve that last few minutes of real. Yeah, just like the wheels are going to completely fall off, kind of thing. Yeah. It takes a while to get to that point. What was a couple of races that made you think that you're going to go from just completing the race, like you talked about, to you wanted to get faster, not necessarily compete at the top end, but what made you think I'm going to push the training and I'm going to push myself in these races a little bit more? Like I know from remembering, but tell me more a bit about that.
So one of my big goals during lockdown was to try and break the 3-hour mark in the marathon, and I just did that round Aberdeen, and so when I managed to break the 3-hour mark, I was like, oh well, okay, I can sustain a good pace for a long period of time, and I went into the Glen Ogle when they ran like a summer edition of the race, and I found myself finishing in third. Quite and it was a huge surprise to me, and everybody kind of came to support me. They kind of missed me at the finish, and I remember phoning them up, asking where they were, and I was like, oh yeah, finishing third, and they were like, really? so that
full
was
of confidence.
Yeah, I know that was a big shock, and after that point, I was like, well, I can hold a good pace for long periods of time, and I enjoyed that. I enjoyed doing the distance, but also covering it quickly, and then after the race, I was thinking about how I could take a bit of time off here and take a bit of time off there, and well, if I do this race, maybe I could get this time. And yes, I think that was definitely the turning point where I started to think that I could be above average at the ultra running.
And you had another good block of marathon training to run an actual marathon, didn't you? Because I think that was quite important in the build up to all these races, having that good marathon build up.
Yeah. That was Seville. We were Seville in, was it February last year?
Yeah.
Which I think was because the training was really good for Seville, and then the race didn't really unfold too well for me. But I think what was really important from that, and something that I always kind of keep in mind, is I really enjoyed the training, and I viewed that as a stepping stone to the next one. So the fact that it didn't really unfold as it planned on the day, it didn't really kind of bother me too much. I didn't beat myself up for that.
In our head that year, it was all, well, not all about, but the Highland Fling was the goal, wasn't it, really?
Yeah.
And having that marathon block running up to February was just perfect for it. So the outcome wasn't 100% what you wanted, but straight away you were, well, yeah, I'm obviously in good shape for the Highland Fling if we can extend that a bit now.
Yeah, definitely. So
that was last year. So I want to quickly touch on the Highland Flame because, I mean, that's what gave us again, from a coaching point of view, that was almost like, well, actually, Stu's ran this in the marathon, and now, like after the Highland Fling, it was like, right, how do we push him on again now? So, and that was the first indication to me. It was like, it's got real potential to kick on again.
So I think the Fling was another big surprise to me. Like the field's always really competitive at the Fling. It's an amazing race, and it attracts a very competitive field. So I knew my training had gone well in the run up to it. I was feeling really good, but I didn't have any real expectations about like a placing in it. I was kind of going for time, and just my own kind of personal goals, and it just kind of unfolded as a really great race for me. I think I paced it and climbed up the pack well throughout the race, and managed to finish fifth, which I was hoping originally to maybe kind of break the top 20. Like that was kind of my goal. So to kind of finish in the top 5 was a big surprise, and a big kind of confidence boost for me. So that was a really cool day. Yeah, definitely. That was a race I would recommend to anyone.
Yeah, so it's a good job you enjoy this West Highland Way, because the Fling, Devil Highlands, you do a lot of your training on it. It's like, if anyone needs a tour guide or someone to sell the West Highland Way, I think they should get in touch. And you're not bored of it yet, are you? Because we'll touch on it, but a lot of the training and the recce's and even the long reps and stuff, it's all added up to. I mean, you've got the luxury of being able to access it now quite easily, haven't you?
Yeah. I live in Partick in Glasgow, so I can, get to it super easy. It's just 20 minutes away, so very lucky. Yeah.
I guess one of the hardest parts is just getting into the West Highland Way, isn't it? Is the ballot still quite hard?
Yeah. So I had a space in 2020 and then 2021. But it got cancelled those years, and then I went in for it again last year and never made the ballot. So I was just on crewing duties last year, which I loved. It was brilliant day out. But it just I guess kind of like stoked the fire even more to kind of come back this year and run the race. Yeah,
that's one of the great things I've seen is like. There's you and then the group that I coach too, and we should mention like he was going well on the day too, and he trained equally as hard as you in the lead up, and just had a rough time of it in the heat and couldn't get things down, I think, in the end. But having that support network, you've got Ewan, the Seb that you run with a lot, and because I've seen in the other races. There's a group of you that all support each other, and you crewed Ewan last year and all that kind of stuff. So has that helped? Because from the outside looking in, it's great because you all hammering training, you all supporting each other at the races. It's good to see.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's one of the most important things is having a good support network around you. Because you're spending a lot of time training, and if you've not got the support of everyone around you, it makes things really difficult, particularly when it's so time consuming. And I think that's something that's maybe kind of want to touch on is like in the early parts of the pandemic, me, Ewan, and Seb we're all kind of getting into endurance training, and we didn't really have anybody to talk to about it. So we kind of started a WhatsApp group that's called Run Greasy, and so we've had this WhatsApp group for 3 and a bit years now, and it's solidified our friendship and support for each other, and we've always had people to talk to about training and egg each other on, and when any of us have had a race coming up, we've always been there to support each other, and that's so important to me. If all the races were to disappear tomorrow and I still had that, I'd be totally happy. That's the kind of most important part to me is having, friendships and good experiences coming out of this and being able to share it with people. And yeah, that's super important to me. So I owe the pair of them everything, I guess. Like, all the kind of success I get in this is, it's super, super important to me.
Yeah. I'd messaged you and after he dropped out and just saying, like, hard luck, mate, and because I'd see this tracker slow down going up to Glencoe and then stopped. And then obviously he messaged back, told me a situation, and then when I was watching later on, all I saw was him at the finish line for you, like almost like jumping around again. So that was good to see. So he'd made it to the finish line, I think.
So what? Yeah, and what people won't have seen on the trackers, well, me and Ewan, we've ran together for the first 30 miles, like side by side. Like, we even scheduled our toilet stops together, and it was, we had kind of thought, we were like, we're probably going to be together for a really long period of time. So we'd kind of planned for that, and up until he started to get some stomach issues, like, he was looking so strong. Like, I think it could have been a coin flip between the two of us for who was going to finish ahead that day. Like, his training was awesome in the run up, and I'm heartbroken for him, because he'd put in so much work. But what I will say is the next person that has to race against him when he goes back to an ultra is going to have a job in their hands. Because
it's funny because although I'm coaching you both, and you have got different training, but then we try and match some of it up on certain days and things like that. And it's like, I'm thinking, because I'm also detached as well, because I'm obviously down here. It's like, are these two just running each other into the ground, or is this a good thing? So it's like, so they're like, we've had that bit of a running joke about the arbitrary miles and just volume and stuff. But it's like, but in reality, it has been great having both of you push each other, but like sensibly at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like, we're, endlessly supportive to each other, and we want each other to do so well, but at the same time we also try to kill each other. Like, we're training, and it's like when we go out, like, I'll maybe, like, on like an uphill, I'll maybe like slightly get the better of Ewan in the uphill, but then as soon as we get to the downhill, he is so fast, and the amount of times I've nearly died trying to chase him down a hill. But we'll compete with everything. Like, last week when we were in the sauna, it was like, how long were you in the sauna for? And like, I'm going to go for a minute longer. These things, but it all adds up, like, over time, to just kind of push you along. And
I've witnessed it, because that run I came up to do with you three, there was you and yourself and Seb, and it was meant to be like a nice run along the loch. So it was like 1 minute Ewan would disappear, then you would disappear. It's like everyone's doing intervals at different things. Like I would feel shit, and then Ewan would run off, and then Ewan would feel like shit, and Stu's running off. It's like, but I could see it. Like, I could see how it was. It was good for everyone. It's good to have a bit of competition with each other, and then all regroup, isn't it?
Yeah. It was. Yeah, it's great fun, and it does. As much as you need to be sensible with the miles, and you don't want to, push when you shouldn't be. It's, when you're running in a group, you kind of get dragged along by them. Like, we've done long training runs where, I felt awful, but just by trying to keep up with them, you get through to the end. And if you were on your own, you would have definitely, finished significantly slower. So it's awesome.
And I know everyone talks about it in terms of, like a track runner or people doing intervals and doing those shorter hard sessions. It is a lot easier if you do have the group, but at the same time, when you're doing those longer, like ultra specific sessions as well, that makes a difference, because it's very easy, and I experience this a lot, when it's very easy to take a bit easy for 10, 20 minutes, say, in a longer, like specific run for an ultra. But when you've got a couple of you and you're pushing the pace to what you want to be on race day, that makes a big difference, I imagine.
Yeah. Particularly over the really long distances, everybody's going to have their high and low points at different stages. So, if you're having a low point or you're kind of falling off pace a wee bit when the other two people in the group or whatever are, feeling good, they're able to pull you along. And then when those roles kind of flip around, you can return the favour. And it does, really, really helps.
Good stuff. Mike, leading into this race, what were the main kind of things that let's talk about what you enjoyed in training and what you didn't enjoy too much, because I remember in the weeks leading up to it, I had a quick look back at your training and Ewan's, and to try and predict what was going to happen almost. But from your point of view, what did you enjoy about the training? What didn't you enjoy so much? Or was it just a case of you were just ticking the sessions off to a certain extent and trying to stay consistent?
It's a difficult one. I mean, I think it's a difficult one. Yeah. I mean, I really just enjoy the whole process. Like always enjoy kind of lacing up and getting out for a run each day. There were some sessions that I definitely dreaded, like the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 uphill sessions on the treadmill, like these sorts of things. Like they were really, really, really tough, but you kind of reap the rewards from them. I don't think there was anything that I would say I didn't like in the run up to it. There was 1 week where I had the shits and training wasn't so fun that week. I think I would have preferred not doing that, but it was overall, like I really enjoyed it, and I think that's something that's super important with ultra running is you're in it for the long term if you want to do well. Like if you're trying to take half an hour off your time in a course or something like that, you're probably looking at 2 years of training to do that. And if you don't enjoy consistently going out and when it's pissing rain or when you're not feeling so good or you've had a tough day at work, if you're not truly enjoying what you're doing, it's going to be really difficult to do that. And like we'd planned some trips and like long runs on the course to kind of get hyped and do recce's and these sorts of things, and we always kind of look forward to doing them. So that was a big part of it as well, was just running with other people and getting excited for the race, because it was all in 10 common.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, and just to touch on because it'll be interesting for everyone listening, I'm sure. Tell me what your strength training looks like through all this.
So I guess I really started knuckling down for the West Highland Way in December, I think, when I got my space. So I did essentially like 2 training blocks. So the first block was kind of December till March, and through that I was doing strength training like twice a week, where I was doing a lot of like kind of pretty or relatively like heavy like leg presses and leg extensions and Nordic hamstring curls and these sorts of things. And I was trying to just keep it simple, like relatively low volume, just because running volume is quite high. So I would maybe do like 4 sets of like kind of 5 to 8 reps, like trying to go pretty heavy, and making sure that everything that I was doing in the gym was strength focused rather than endurance focused. So instead of doing 4 sets of 25 calf raises, I was making sure that it was like 8 reps and below, so it was really, really heavy. So that's what I was doing in the first block, and then in the second block I wasn't really doing a whole lot of gym workouts. Like I was doing wee bits and pieces, but I had to kind of make the trade-off of the amount of running volume that I was doing, and as the intensity of sessions was cranking up, something would have to give. So the strength training kind of went to the side for the last training block, or the strength training in the gym kind of went to the side in the last training block, and the biggest, I guess, strength stimulus I got was from all the downhill reps that we that we had in my plan. They would definitely.
That's what I was going to mention next. Is like I was just thinking about you because that's one of the changes we made. Was quite a lot of the short downhill reps, like 30 seconds and that kind of thing. But we also had like kilometre or even kilometre long downhill reps. Yeah. Which is a bit of a change up really than what we've done, but. Yeah, you know what that course was like beforehand, so I think that was one of the big changes as a coach. It's like, I'm going to try this. There's not too many people that have had that many downhill reps, if I'm honest, but yeah, I was confident you could handle them. Yeah,
so I think they need to be used sparingly, but they're super effective. And I found, because I know we spoke about this after the kind of the first training block leading into West Highland Way. So when I ran the Devil of the Highlands route, just as a kind of like time trial, I when I hit the big downhills, like my quads just weren't feeling sore and tired. When I would expect them to be, and that was a huge surprise to me. And I remember hitting it was like the second last like long downhill into Kinloch Leaving, and I was like, my legs really don't feel bad, so I'm gonna really push the downhill here, so that the last half of the race, or the last half of this time trial, is really hard and might be a bit closer to the West Highland Way. But I was like hammered it down the hill, and I got into Kinloch Leaving, and I was like, what's going on? Like, my legs feel probably the best they felt all run, and then I took off onto the last section, and so it was after that, like, I was like, yeah, Gary, we need to put more of these in to the training block, and yeah, definitely paid off on the day on Saturday there. Yeah, so they're if you can strategically put them into your training block, if you've got a race that's got a lot of runnable downhills, they're a game changer, and I don't use that term lightly.
Yeah. We're not saying to everyone quickly go out and do lots of long kilometre downhill reps straight off the bat. Well, if you do, don't come crying to us too.
This is your chance to put your coaching business.
Or just injure everyone on one podcast. I think your longest run, not your longest run, sorry, the last long run was about 4 weeks out, something like that, wasn't it? So you did have that long run 4 weeks out, and then it was more about staying sharp. But in those 4 weeks, how were you feeling for the race, and just tell me a bit more about how you're feeling and maybe aspirations for the race, because we never really talked about placings at all, did we? We kept it quite, like you say, you like it quite simple, and so do I. So it was more get the best out of our training and then see how it goes. But secretly, what were you thinking?
So I think in the last 4 weeks, like I knew that was. Sorry. Once I'd kind of got through that kind of camp week that we did, I knew that was kind of like as fit as I was going to get. Like I wasn't really going to get any like fitter in the last 4 weeks. So it was really a case of just trying to maintain my fitness, making sure that I didn't get injured, and kind of keeping sharp with some interval sessions just to kind of keep that all going. And I guess I kind of switched gears a bit at that point to like a lot more like mental training, kind of trying to dial in like the sports psychology side of things, like doing a lot of visualization of the race, kind of rehearsing that in my head, and then starting to get the Excel spreadsheets out and planning for nutrition and pacing and all these sorts of things, and yeah, so that was kind of, I guess, my main focus in the last 4 weeks running up to it. But I think it was really interesting this year. Like, it was a very competitive field. There was a lot of awesome runners that showed up to the race this year, and I tried to kind of put any sort of placings to the side, because over that sort of distance, anything can happen. And I just wanted to make sure that I get the best race that I could do for me. And I mean, I was fairly confident that if I had a good day, I could break into maybe the top 5, and maybe an outside chance of a podium. But winning it was never. We never spoke about that. I never. A couple of people asked me, they were like, "Oh, do you think you could win it?" And it was like a resounding no. It wasn't ever something that I kind of thought about for this year. So that was, that was a huge shock. That was a huge shock.
Yeah. It was like you are good at just like you get your training and you just go off and do it, and then if you need anything, you let me know. But that's the only, in those last couple of weeks, that's the only time where I've messaged you both a couple of times just to make sure like you're not doing too much, because I know what it feels like, and I know you were both in such great shape, kind of thing. So it's like I was ticking off the weeks as well. I was just kind of thinking, I want this race to get started now. And like you, it wasn't about competing really for first, second, or third. It was just like I want this to go well, because, like you say, when you're in shape, that's one thing, but the distance plus the weather didn't help people on that day at all, I imagine. So there's so much that you have to manage on the day. It's just, I guess you were taking it from the start, just running as your own race, which is, I know everyone says that, but that really is the best way about it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I kind of always said going into it, I just wanted to make sure that I had, everything that I could possibly be prepared for, I was prepared for. So, weather scenarios, nutritional, options and these sorts of things, all the way down to, if I needed to, change my shoes or, how all these things were going to work. I made sure that just like every box that I could tick was ticked. That, really played in my favour on the day, and all these things, I guess, added up. But we did, like, when we ran the first section from Mulgai to Balmaha, we got to Balmaha 1 second per mile faster than scheduled. And like we said to each other, we were like, right, well, we need to, like, this hill we walked in training, so we need to walk it, and we need to eat now. And we were checking with each other if we've ate and we've drank, and doing all these sorts of things. And that was really important. And it was quite funny at the start of the race. I don't know if people that were watching the trackers saw, there was after a couple of miles, me and Ewan found ourselves in first and second position because a couple of other runners had taken a wrong turn. And then they came up behind us. It was Martin Heggie and Robbie Dunlop, and we recognised the voices, and we were like, "What the hell are they doing here?" Like, I thought they were like miles ahead, and we were all kind of like joking at the front, like, "Oh, enjoy this moment, boys! You're leading the West Highland Way," and blah blah blah. And then so there was a kind of a lot of back and forth, and then when we both actually ended up like in the lead, I think going into Roardown, we were kind of looking at each other like, what are we doing? Like, have we gone off like way too fast? Like, because there's so many awesome runners behind us, we were like, have we just royally screwed this up? Like, it was fun.
What's the start like? Because most people that know about the race will know it's a 1 a.m. start, right? So what is the lead up to that start like, and what did you do, if anything, different than a normal race day? Because it must be hard about like timing your meals, and do you even try and get to sleep and that kind of thing? How did you approach that?
So I tried, like, in the week running up, just get as much sleep as I could, kind of focused on that. And the night before, I stayed up a wee bit later till like 1 a.m. and then kind of slept in till about 11 o'clock, which was pretty good. And then had a wee bit of a nap later on, but not really kind of too much. But I wasn't too stressed about it because, by the time, you get to the start line, the buzz of it kind of wakens you up anyway, and missing one night's sleep isn't really too much of a big deal. And anybody that knows me loves or knows how much I love caffeine. So I was kind of dosing that by the gram, so it doesn't it wasn't too bad. But the start's awesome because there's so many people there, and it's just such a iconic start to a race as well. It was really, really exciting, but I was just kind of itching to get going and just kind of settle into the run. So there was a lot of nervous energy, but yeah.
And was it warm through the night from the start? Because obviously we knew it was going to warm up once the sun came up and all stuff like that. But how was running through the night? Because I guess some people can maybe make the mistake, or I personally think it might be a mistake, to try and kind of run a bit faster while it's the night because they know it's going to be hot. But I don't think you two did that at all. Like you say, you were bang on plan. But how did you feel it went through the night?
Yeah, I think it wasn't too bad. I mean, we had kind of spoke about like, do we try and like bank a bit of time while it's cool? But we decided against that, and I guess the only kind of adjustment that I made through the night was just trying to like almost like get ahead with hydration. Just because knowing like inevitably I was going to end up behind just as it got hotter through the day, and as the race went on. So I drank a wee bit more through the night than originally planned and took on more electrolytes. So that was really just setting myself up as well as I could for when it got hot. And then when I got to Roar Down, I switched to like a tank top sort of vest thing, just to make sure that I wasn't kind of getting too warm, and that seemed to help. But yeah, it wasn't too bad through the night. There was a couple of points where we got a nice headwind, and you could kind of air your armpits, and that was nice.
Yeah. And your crew, did you have the same crew all the way through the race, and how often did you meet up with them?
Yeah, so my crew, so I had my friend Johnny, my younger brother Robert, and my partner Marika crewing me, and they were stars of the show. They ran things like an F1 team. I was, in and out of checkpoints like so quickly. Like that's always kind of the strategy that I try to take. Like I don't like sitting down and stopping. Like it just doesn't really work for me. So I was in and out of checkpoints really quickly. They had everything ready, and we had buckets with ice water with sponges. So like every time I came through, like I could just get absolutely drenched with these, and that made a huge difference. And then Marika would like chase me down the road with like sun cream. Like it was really funny when I was coming out of, I think it was Kinloch leaving. I was like, I think it was quite overcast at the time, and I was like dead set on just getting out of the checkpoint and getting towards the finish. And I was like, no, it's okay. She was chasing me with this like cloud of sun cream. I was like, no, it's fine. And she was like, well, you don't want skin cancer, do you? I was like, yeah, that wouldn't be a good thing. But yeah, so that was the last thing I heard leaving the checkpoint.
So, but have you seen the trophy? I need to go.
So they were with me, and you're quite lucky in the West Highland Way because you can see your crew very frequently. You're apart from the Lochside section, you're seeing them every 10 miles at most, so you're able to get supplies, and if you're well organized you can really take advantage of that. And when it started heating up as well, Johnny, he started like meeting me at the checkpoints with an ice lolly and like kind of shoving it in my mouth. And the first time I saw it, I was like, I don't know, like this wasn't on the nutrition plan. But then every time I was getting to a checkpoint, I was like, give me that Solero. Like, I was like, they were amazing.
Yeah. That's great. There's some great photos of you, and I've used them on my Instagram. So if anyone took them and needs to let me know, just ask. But someone sent them me, and there's one of your crew, like you say, just dousing you in water sponges the lot, and then there's another one with you just like with the remnants of it's like a fruit pasta lolly or something, just clinging onto it.
Yeah. It was amazing.
Was it at Inversnaid that you took the lead, like outright lead? Yeah, which there's still a lot of running to go, and when you've not been in that position before in a race as big as this before, what was your initial thoughts of and how did that kind of come about when you went out on your own?
So yeah, when I got into Inversnaid, I think I was third, and I managed to get myself out of there quickly because I just needed to refill a bottle. So I then kind of went into first at that point, but I had Martin Heggie and Kyle Gregg on my heels, and I'd been through the first kind of lockside section with Kyle, and when we were on like the really technical bits, like the really rough bits of lockside, we weren't too far away from each other. But then as soon as it went flat, like he just disappeared. Like you would blink and he was gone. So when I left ahead of him, I was like, oh shit, like it's he's going to come absolutely flying up behind me. Or like when it gets like past Ben Glass and it's a lot more runnable, like, I'm absolutely screwed. But I tried to just not look behind me too much, and but it was definitely it felt like a lot of pressure, like kind of being at the lead of the race, and particularly a race like the West Highland Way, and having so many good runners behind you. There was almost I know there was a bit of me that wanted someone to come up behind me and like take the lead and have someone to chase, and because it was quite anxiety inducing actually, like to be at the front, and it was quite a strange experience, that.
Especially when it ended up being for about 10 hours or something. It's a lot of it's a lot of time to be looking over your shoulder, kind of thing, really. What were you getting any info from your crew or any time from the checkpoints or anything like that?
Yeah, so I think it was when I got to Tyndrum, like I knew that I'd created a bit of a gap. But the thing is, like everyone that's experienced and running the West Highland Way, says you need to get to Tyndrum with legs to run, and if you've overcooked it, like you're absolutely screwed.
Okay.
And I was feeling quite good at that point, but because I was up front and I'd created a gap, I was like, oh, like is there someone that's get marathon fresh legs like about to kind of come up behind me? So I kind of tried to hang on to that gap, and there's a very runnable section from Tyndrum to Bidgeworthy, and I just tried to kind of get a bit more of a gap like through that section, and my crew were telling me like you need to put the foot down here, and then try and bank a bit of time. But what I found out afterwards was like they were lying to me, like how far behind second place was. Like I was told, like, oh, he's like 2k behind you. Like you need to put the foot down. You need to put the foot down. But then I think at the last checkpoint I had good bit more than 2k. But
it was quite hard to tell on the tracker. Like the gaps stayed pretty consistent for a long time. So yeah, although you were leading and running well, the guys behind you were staying consistent in the gap, and it was only later on that it did look to extend. And then there was a moment where within the last 5 or 6k it is. I don't know that. I mean, I kind of know the area, but your tracker just stuck. And who was it in second?
David Ward.
Guy in second. Dave Ward was like creeping up on you, and it was. What I know now is that your tracker it must have lost signal in the forest or whatever it was, because that's what I hoped it was, because it just stayed there for a long time. It was either you're injured and you've dropped, or it's just out of signal. And the fact that on the map it looked like a forest bit, I was like, I hope it's just out of signal. And then you popped up like literally 2k from the end, and it was like I was pacing around the back garden thinking, what is going on here? What is going on? Where is he? And then it popped up, and it was like, oh, everything's okay. and then the same thing happened to Dave's trackers, so it was just a bit of a black spot on the trackers. But that left a bit of excitement just for the last few minutes, mate.
Oh yeah, such a tease.
I know, yeah. What was it like in that last, I guess, from Tyndrum? Because I imagine that's when it gets tough, and it's tough because you're leading, but just tough because the pace is slowed. And were you still able to get nutrition on, or and did you feel okay? Because I've briefly talked about it since, but how were you feeling in that running?
Sorry, I lost you there.
Sorry, mate. I was just asking about, like, after Tyndrum, when we know it's going to get hard, how were you feeling? Because obviously the pace starts to slow a little bit. Were you still able to get nutrition on? And I've spoke to you briefly about the fact that you tried to stay just controlled more than anything. You didn't push it too much. But how were you feeling edging closer to the finish?
Yeah, I mean, once I kind of knew that once I got to Tyndrum, like I kind of almost felt like that was like my kind of part of the race, like because I know that section so well, and I ran it, I'd ran that whole section as a like back in March, and I knew that there was plenty of runnable sections that I could try and like do well on, so I was trying to keep it controlled, but run every bit that I could, and any kind of chances to pick up a wee bit of time, I was trying to take them. Nutrition wise, like I think I was really lucky on the day. Like I didn't have any GI issues. Like my stomach was fine. I had one toilet stop, and there was a couple of points like I had a bit of a stitch, but I think I was just behind on fluids a wee bit, so I was drank a bit more and it kind of cleared up. But I was fortunate on the day that I didn't have any major issues. And there was some small adjustments to what I was doing. Like I wasn't really eating much solids, so I had like rice balls and these sorts of things. Like I was managing to get a bit of them in, but for the most part, it was just a case of like fluids and gels and just getting them down me. And yeah, that all kind of went smoothly from that point of view. Yeah.
And running into Fort William kind of thing, obviously, I assume you probably knew that unless you kind of fell under a bus, that was it, you've won the race. Were you able to enjoy that last couple of kilometres? I mean, or was it still panic stations? Yeah. And coming back to almost like civilization, is there anyone out watching for the winner coming in and all? Yeah, tell us what the finish was like.
Yeah. So that what you just said there, that last point, like, was actually something that I quite liked. There was, because you don't have a race number on, like during the West Highland Way race, so there was loads of tourists out like doing the route, and like loads of people you would pass, and they just like they had no idea that that you just ran from Glasgow. So you would just get like a hello, like just kind of like it's normal, and that, like I don't know, I really liked that, that it was just so kind of casual. It was just like just kind of ran past and said hello like any other day, but I kind of coming out of Kinloch, leaving to the last checkpoint at Lundavra, I tried to run that as hard as I could, just to kind of make sure that I didn't get caught. But when I got there, I knew that I had like plenty of time in the bank, and I'd secured the win. And it was kind of at that point I said, well, this is a really beautiful part of the course, so I'm going to like look around a wee bit, because the whole day I just had my head down and was focusing on racing, and I thought, well, I paid 120 quid for this. I'm gonna get my money's worth, and so I kind of like enjoyed that section, and then the last 3.5 miles, you've got a really long downhill that was incredibly uncomfortable on the legs. All those downhill routes that we did not save me for that section. It was like when I got to the top of the hill, I actually took like a deep breath before going down it, just knowing that I was like, you're in for a very uncomfortable 20 minutes, Stuart boy. But yeah, once I got to the car park at the finish, it was just overwhelming. Because a lot of I knew my family were going to be there, and my crew, and obviously all the the volunteers for the race. But I had some of my friends had surprised me, like they'd kind of been watching, and they came up from Glasgow, and seeing them at the finish was crazy. And then one of my friends, Aiden, his parents had been tracking me, and they came up to the finish, and
no rush, mate.
Unfortunately, a couple of years ago, we lost Aiden very suddenly, and he was my best friend since primary one at school, and he was always so supportive about anything I was doing in life, and he so I've got my hat for the Fitzroy Harriers. Some people were kind of asking about that, and to cut a long story short, Aiden started the Fitzroy Harriers running club when he was in Melbourne, and after he died, his parents, to keep his legacy going, got a bunch of merchandise made, and me and my friend Dominic that does triathlons and these sorts of things, we kind of try and keep that going in his memory, and so that was something that was kind of giving me a big push throughout the race. But yeah, getting to the finishing line and seeing them there, just like it just like made it just, it was just everything to me. It was brilliant.
It's overwhelming, isn't it? Because you're already tired, and it's like so it's great of them to make the trip up and support you though at the same time. They must have loved seeing it. So when you went into, go on.
That meant a lot. It was just super. So glad I didn't screw it up for them.
The run into the hall. Obviously, you have the unfortunate circumstance to run in when it's probably as empty as it can be, I imagine, before all the other runners start streaming in. But what was the first feelings? I've seen your interview, and like you say, you were just a bit overwhelmed with winning the race. Was it, having been there in the same position on the odd occasion, was it just relief because it from leading that long and getting over that finish line, or how were you feeling just after the finish?
I think just content, just happy, just relief, just every emotion, I guess. and I think this belief was the biggest thing, you know, like I said in the interview, like I just, you know, this was the race that's always kind of like motivated me the most in ultra running, and to come and win it on my first crack was, you know, not something I'd ever kind of dreamed of, and yeah, that was pretty overwhelming in itself, and yeah, I was just super happy, and like I actually felt really energized at the end just by, you know, everyone kind of being there, and you know, that was awesome. But yeah, give it half an hour, and my wee brother was helping me in for my second shower after I'd spewed everything up. So it was a real fall from grace.
Yeah, the initial adrenaline runs off, and then that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
that was funny.
Everyone that's been supporting you, they want to knock off as well. So like, come on, Stu, get in the car, we'll go in.
I know. So yeah,
I've got some questions, mate, for my Asked on Instagram. So before I forget, I don't want to miss them because I won't keep you much longer. But let me just quickly get them. So James from the House Running Club, James Besant, is asking. Well, we kind of answered this. Did you have the intention of doing so well beforehand?
I definitely had the intention of doing well, but not winning. So
yeah. We've got 2 or 3 questions about the midge situation.
Oh yeah.
How are the midges?
Oh, it was horrendous. See, when we were running, like particularly the section between Balmaha and Roar Down, there was one point like we were running with our heads down, like because the midges were like there was millions of them, and they were getting in our eyes. Like we were having to like stop and like claw our eyes to get the midges out. It was unbelievable. They weren't so bad like kind of later on in the race, or I didn't notice them so much, but at the start, like kind of round about like 4 a.m, they were absolutely horrendous. So probably made up the bulk of my calories just eating millions of midges. Yeah,
that's just part of it, isn't it? You're not going to get away with it at that time of year up there. No. Kevin's asking, what is will you go back to the race again?
Yeah, I think at some point, that's something a lot of people were asking me over the weekend, was like, you know, will I be back to defend my title next year? And
straight away, just as we finished.
I know. But no, next year I'm not planning to race it again next year. You know, one of the biggest reasons that I, you know, do this is to see the world and, you know, experience different races. So I'd like to go and do some other races next year, and then like, you know, maybe in a few years' time, go back to the West Highland Way and try and take a dent out of my time. That would be cool. But yeah, next year I'll happily go and support people in crew and, you know, be part of the weekend in a different way.
Yeah. But then, at least I don't think you have to worry about the ballot next time.
No.
Yeah. Johnny is asking, last one from this, what is your bucket list trail race then, just to match up to that? If you've got one.
The Dragon's Back, I think.
The Dragon's Back.
Yeah, but Dragon's Back. So I'm hoping to maybe do that in a few years' time, if I can sell an organ to the Dragon's Back. That'd be cool. But yeah, I'm hoping next year I'd like to go and maybe do some races in Europe. I'd, you know, really like to go and do one of the big races where, you know, it's attracting a lot of, you know, professional runners from around the world, and, you know, kind of testing things against, you know, people at that level, you know, not expecting to come anywhere near them, but just kind of, you know, I think that would be a good motivating thing to try and push myself. So yeah, go to a big race where I'll get my arse handed to me. That sounds good.
Yeah.
Finish 100th.
Yeah, I won't ask you what is immediately next. You can tell me that when you've had a rest, mate. But yeah. Last thing I'm going to ask you is, how was it going back to the presentation and that experience when everyone's picking up their what do they get again? Remind me.
Yeah, it's like a goblet, like a Glencairn
goblet. Yeah,
so like whiskey glass.
And everyone goes back to the hall, and obviously we'd planned for you to do well, but maybe not lift the winner's trophy. So how was that whole experience? I imagine it was quite surreal, to be honest.
Oh yeah, it was like.
I saw the video you sent me, and you were just swigging a big bottle of water. Thinking you must be dehydrated.
So bad. It's so bad.
It was like a massive litre. What was it, like a 5 litre or something?
No, it was just I'm just really small. It was only a 2 litre.
Yeah.
That was that's I think one of the the most important parts of the West Highland Way race is the presentation that they do at the end, and I think it's so important and brilliant that everybody gets their moment up in the stage and gets their clap and it was a real privilege being able to present the final goblet to Linda, who was like the last finisher, and she really got the recognition that she deserved, being out there for such a long time and hammering away at the course, and that's a really important part of the whole event. So that was really cool. It was nerve-wracking. Like my hands were so clammy. So like when I got handed all this stuff, it was like falling out my hands, and I was like fumbling about like an idiot.
Who's this guy?
Yeah, I know. So, but yeah, standing there in my slippers. But yeah, it was cool. But it was very, very surreal. Yeah.
Good. Good stuff, mate. I'm going to let you go and recover now and get some food in you, hopefully.
Chill out, yeah.
Good, mate. Thanks for that. I will, obviously I'll speak to you soon, but yeah, thanks for your time. It was great following the race, and to Ewan as well. I'll speak to him separately. I'm sure he'll be back. He'll want another crack, won't he?
Yeah, he'll bounce back even stronger. So,
where can I point people to? I'm not sure if you're on Instagram anymore. I couldn't find you, but
nah, I'm on Strava.
Under the
apart
just follows you on Strava.
Yeah, apart from that, I don't exist.
Yeah, it's gone under the radar. We'll keep it that way for now. Yeah. Okay, thanks, mate. Yeah, thanks again, and I'll speak to you soon.
Yeah, cheers for having me. Thanks.
Always, mate.